Right. Good day, good day. Cannot hear you, sir. You are on mute.
Just give me a quick second.
Cool. All right. As we begin the morning vibe, I am inviting people onto, and somebody is here at the building. Oh dear.
Here we go.
Hold on, give me 1 sec. Somebody is downstairs at the building. Why?
Well, go ahead. You can answer them, and I'll take care of it.
You can't just show up.
It's okay. No, it's okay. You do your thing. Good morning, everybody. It's Monday morning. Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. And as always, it's the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the home of Epic Conversations. Excuse me. And I am also host the let me do it right. Had a hiccup here. Ryan had a hiccup. I had a hiccup. So let's do it proper here. I am the 2-time winner of a Canadian Ethnic Media Association Award 2020, Best Podcast News Broadcast, also 2018 Innovation Award winner, hosts the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And as part of that collaboration, I've been able to reach out directly or indirectly to over 75,000 fathers around the world this year. And also, I'm the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that is based in San Francisco. And its job is to showcase Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, travel, and drink. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Ryan Knight is just answering the door downstairs in the office, so he'll be there momentarily. And you're watching the Morning Vibe live on October 4th. Hope everyone had a good weekend wherever you are. Some of the things that went on this weekend, right before we went live, Ryan was upset because his Toronto Blue Jays did not make the playoffs. But hey, that's not the end of the world. We do what we got to do. So Ryan is back from center field.
Yes.
Just in time to introduce.
We have our co-op students starting today.
Oh,
Nathan is in the building from Grammarly Secondary School.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm all right this morning. It's a little gloomy, but
it's all right. You're going to add to the sunshine.
Thank you.
And Ryan likes it because you're on time.
Yeah,
that's an inside thing, right? Ryan won't go there.
Yes.
So introduce yourself and talk to our audience. Share with our audience.
Absolutely. So for those that don't know me, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We work with entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, figuring out what stage they're in today and helping them create a blueprint to grow their companies exponentially. And similar to our theme, a tagline that I'm going to be using and probably tattoo on myself somewhere is solving complexity through collaboration. I feel like there is no other way forward other than through collaboration. So also, I'm a business owner. Oh, can you grab me that shirt, the green one?
He's also a boss too, right?
Every time I say DK, Detailing Nights in the building. So we do mobile waterless car cleaning, going to people's houses, cleaning their cars. And we have a youth entrepreneurship program built in. We're doing our fall edition. So we have the 2 students with us working in the evenings and on the weekends. So shout out to Taj and Torian, learning what it's like to talk to people in real life and make the sale. That customer interaction.
Seal the deal.
You sell yourself. Yes.
Seal the deal. How was the weekend?
The weekend was lovely until last night when, of course, the Blue Jays got knocked out because the Tampa Bay Devil Rays threw the game and the Nationals threw the game. So I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but I know a team not trying their hardest to win when I see. So to you, the Rays, you are not winning the World Series because of what I saw yesterday.
Okay.
There. Watch, the Yankees will beat the Red Sox and then beat the Rays so that they can feel it.
All right. So conspiracies. We'll have to take that up at another episode. That's good. Excellent. Yes. Excellent. But other than that, good weekend?
Yeah. I got to spend the weekend with the kiddos, playing daddy duty, going to see the grandparents, and getting to see a couple cousins. Excellent. So your thoughts on now that the vaccine might be available for 5 to 11-year-olds, I'm still on the fence with having my kids have to get that jab. I feel when
we're going to be joining and having a superstar come in a few minutes, and you throw that topic on now,
it's like it's on my mind now, as they keep pushing that they want to give the kids the vaccine.
I think most parents will go for it. Obviously, you're going to have that contingent that are going to say no.
Yeah,
I always find, I think one of the most interesting parts of this whole jab issue, is that people who don't take the jab but get COVID.
Oh yeah, and we're seeing them in the hospital, like by the boatload. Yeah, like what's the benefit? There's no benefit not to get it. That's what we're seeing.
Keeps the costs going up.
Yeah.
And I think, we live in the province of Ontario. Today, the MPPs, Ministers of Provincial Parliament, come back in. And this will probably be the last session before the next election in Ontario.
Oh, true.
Yes.
You got to get revved up for that. That'll be exciting.
Yes. And lots of conversations about Janelle Scarrett and being named CEO of the York Region CS. But actually, I hosted Black Canada Talking yesterday, and there are a number of Black women who have been appointed to a lot of responsible positions. Like there's one of the major positions in Ottawa transit system is now being held by a Black woman. There's a lady who's just been hired, Rachelle DeCoste, who's now head of the diversity and inclusion for the National Film Board.
Okay.
So a number of Black
women.
Isn't it
TDSB, the interim director at Peel District School Board, is now the full-time in Toronto District School Board.
Well, I was having a conversation with someone on Saturday. Said there was a lady. I'm not sure. I may be wrong. A Black woman who took the Peel post and then she left.
Right, to go to Toronto.
Yes,
she got a full-time gig there.
Yes. So we had a very good conversation yesterday with Sarah Youngo and Cesar Nadima Musa about Black women being appointed these positions, and a lot of times they're appointed these positions and the organizations are in chaos. Right. So they're almost being asked to clean up, before go ahead.
Who else better than Black women to fix the mess that everybody else has made? It's like always put on their shoulders.
It just seems to be a pattern. These organizations, let's call on that Black woman to come and clean it up.
And they should have been there from the beginning, designing it so that we're not in this situation. Because your CAS, God help them. I'm glad that Janelle is there because,
Yeah. All right. You know what? We could go on, but what we're talking about indirectly has to do with our guest today.
Absolutely. And
so give him the. I'm going to do the drum roll.
Yes.
Give the intro.
Oh, I'll intro. So we today, and he's been a guest before, Christopher Trotman, who runs Trotman Communications and also the new cooperative Calabash that is bringing together local service, actually national, I think it's across Canada. So expert service providers in the BIPOC community, so Black and Indigenous community, I would say more focused on Black and Indigenous, where we can now help nonprofits, similar to how Janelle is coming in to fix up the York CAS. We want to be able to do that with any nonprofit that wants to kind of amplify their impact. So happy to have Christopher back to see where Calabash has progressed to and why it's so important to solve complexity through collaboration.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Outstanding. Are you getting any sleep these days?
More than I would expect. Yeah,
Oh.
I try to be fairly good about my sleep schedule, because if I'm not sleeping, I'm not at my best. So
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What's been going on since the last time we spoke?
when was the last time we spoke?
A few months ago.
I feel like there's a lot.
Yes.
I mean, Trotman Communications has continued to grow and expand. For those of you who don't know, I am the founder of Trotman Communications, a boutique communications firm that works in the community health sector. So helping healthcare organizations with their communication needs. And that has just continued to grow and expand, working outside of the healthcare sector now, in addition to working with community health centers. So really happy about that. And like Ryan mentioned, we collaborate with Calabash, a collective of Black, Indigenous, and racialized consultants that are working to work with organizations in the Black community or in racialized communities, and helping them with whatever their needs might be. As organizations get funding, they may have challenges in finding a consultant to actually work on those projects. And we're really working on bringing consultants together to, number one, support these organizations who have these needs and have these projects that need fulfilling on. But also, number two, just keep our ears to the ground. I think one of the greatest things that has come out of being part of this collective, being part of Calabash, is just gaining a greater awareness of what's happening in the community. Because me as an individual with my 2 eyes and my 2 ears can only be aware of so much. But when you're in a group collaborating, there are things that people see that just like go past my awareness, not for lack of trying, just I'm only one person. So
Right. Excellent. In how did Calabash get started?
It was actually in large part out of conversations between me and Ryan.
Okay.
Me, Ryan, and actually another member of the team, Angie Fleming. We started having conversations around there is a program that the government came out with called the Social Finance Fund, and an extension of that called the Investment Readiness Program, where essentially they were putting funding towards not-for-profit organizations and helping organizations to start social enterprises so they can start generating revenue internally and become investment ready. A large resource that organizations had access to was being provided by InnoWeave, a program of the McConnell Foundation. And this resource was a directory of consultants from across Canada. And in speaking with Ryan, both me and Ryan are listed on that directory as consultants. But at the time, we were one of, I would say, less than one of three.
We were the third and fourth.
Like the only ones in the room, sort of.
We were the third and fourth.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're like, well,
out of over 100.
Out of over 100 across the country, yeah. And it's interesting because I actually had the experience of being called by an organization, and they were just like, yeah, we spoke to this one consultant, and they were telling us all of these things, and they wanted us to pay to work with them, but like to actually put forward the application, and then whether or not we got approved for the funding, we would still have to pay them, but it just felt a bit off. And I was like, frankly, I mean, paying for grant writing is not unusual, right?
Right.
And that's not an unusual expectation.
Mhm.
And the way that me and Ryan were working in the context of that program in particular is if an organization wanted to work with us, we would partner with them to complete the grant. Like we would actually just help them complete the grants. They wouldn't have to pay us because from our perspective, that would be like double dipping. We're not going to have you pay for us to write the grant that you would then use to pay us to do the work. Right. So in speaking with that organization, one thing that she noted was like just the lack of, Black consultants to draw on to support her with the work that she saw that there was to do in the community with her community organization in building her capacity. So we thought, okay, well, let's do something about that. Let's start working on building this directory. But moving past this kind of passive way of providing support, moving past just creating a list of consultants, if that was our end goal, we would have had that list together like months ago. Like right now, if you go to the Calabash website, the list is very limited. And that's because we don't want to just create a list of consultants that people will have access to. We want to create a true community of consultants that collaborate to find organizations, to support those organizations, to pool their resources, to put together supports to help organizations, whether they're paying us or not. Like we want to create a community that's really dedicated to supporting organizations wherever they're at. Those are organizations who can afford to pay, and those are organizations who don't necessarily have those resources.
And I love that you touched on even organizations that can't afford to pay, because that ties into a lot of the conversations that we're having around Calabash is not just for the organizations that get funding and apply for grants and are successful, but actually those that apply and are not successful. We're asking a lot of the funders, hey, what do you do with that list of organizations that have now been declined? And I almost 100% of them are like, nothing. We just
you don't see if you can help them win.
That exactly. You've seen that they've asked for help, but you haven't put in place any structure to help them if they don't, I guess, get in your box. And so that's where I feel like Calabash can be a real, like, fill a real gap with organizations that need that support to get to the level to get the funding. So I'm curious, Christopher, what you've been seeing with, different funders that you're talking to, that kind of collaboration around helping those that do need a bit of more help. What has been the reception like?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say the funder that we have the most frequent conversations with are some of the intermediaries from the Supporting Black Canadian Communities Initiative.
Right.
And in their case, like I don't want to sound like we're maligning them or placing the blame on them for not focusing on those organizations that haven't been funded. Like, frankly, they are organizations themselves who are under-resourced and have been put in the role of being intermediaries of this funding, of being the just a source through which this funding flows into community, right? So from that perspective, even their ability to really fully resource and support those organizations that have been funded is stretched, right?
True.
That being said, I don't know that that's an excuse, right? Because there are people out there and organizations like Calabash that are looking to lend support. I think prior to having these conversations with these intermediaries, before we actually started building some sort of relationship, we were looking at how can we support them. We actually, even during the first round of and I know you remember this, Ryan, during the first round of the Supporting Black Canadian Communities Initiative, we saw that, I don't know if the communications that are going out there to community are sufficient. Both me, Ryan, and Kwame were commenting on this, saying this is not going to reach people across Canada in the way that I think they're intending it to. Because from what we can see, it's just not enough communication about it and not enough support in helping people through the application process.
Right.
So we developed a letter which not only outlined like what we saw as the issue, but provided some actionable steps of how we felt the issue could be resolved. and provided an offer of support if they wanted to take it up.
Okay. I just want to interrupt. I heard a very interesting word. If.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
Yeah. I mean,
continue. Just continue. Continue.
I mean, ultimately, that offer of support was not taken up at the time. And again, like I like working in a corporate context, I appreciate you not knowing who's coming through the door and what people's objectives are and having some hesitation and kind of being in your own bubble. And the point is, there are people in community that want to lend support, and there just doesn't seem to be clear avenues through which those people who want to lend support to organizations that have been created to help community and facilitate these opportunities can come in and lend our support and expertise. It just feels like a closed box.
You know what, Christopher? I'm going to ask a question. Why? And I'm saying we. Why are we I'm going to root this back to the topic: solving complexity through collaboration. Why are we making this so complex?
Yeah, it's funny because it's something I've been thinking about. And
I got an answer for you. Ryan knows I'm going to say I got my three things, but I want to hear what you're going to say.
Okay. My own perspective on it is there is this desire for legitimacy, right? When you look at the organizations that have been newly put into these positions of power, right? Mm-hmm. And as such, towards that desire for legitimacy, there's a mirroring of operating the way they see larger organizations operating, which very much is in that closed box. It's a very kind of Eurocentric mentality of, we're here, you're on the outside, we're here to support you, and we know what we're doing. We're experts, so we're going to do what we're doing, right? However, that mentality is not matched by the resources that these organizations have available to them. So they're trying to operate like a big funder, like a Metcalf or like a Trillium, and again, not maligning those funders. It's just they are larger funders with resources, and there's no way they're gonna I wouldn't even approach them to say, hey, I want to help you with your grant program. It doesn't who am I inside of the context of what they're doing? They've been doing this for a long time. They have their structures in place, whatever.
Sure.
Right? But the organizations that have been funded recently to serve in that role, I think they're very much mirroring that same structure where it's this closed box, somewhat separate from community, and as a result, not connected to the kinds of supports that community might be able to provide.
Okay. Ryan, what answer do you think I'm going to give?
Oh dear. If it's three, it's the trauma symbolism. No, wait, trauma repetition symbolism.
Yep.
Okay. Yes.
That's what I would reinforce what you're saying, but I think there's trauma, and a lot of these organizations, mirroring what you just said, want to do things the way they've been done by other organizations, what doesn't match to us, and the symbolism, make everything look good on the outside, but we don't on the back end. We don't have the processes.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, and that's a big piece where we need to, if you exist as an organization, no matter how small or how big, if you're not if you don't have the right infrastructure
process,
we don't want to see those organizations feel like they have taken up a mantle to execute something specific in the community. Whoever has taken up that charge, we want to make sure that they succeed. So that's where we definitely have to get somehow through the trauma. And hey, that is a different realm that I am not an expert in. We have to definitely get away from the symbolism, because that's something that I tend to start pointing out. If something is put in place and it's more just for show than actual substance, we have to start breaking through that. And that's where I'm really glad that the intermediaries are having that dialogue with you to say, you know what, initially we were trying it this way. Hey, let's see if Calabash can be a way to amplify what we're already doing. So what would you propose now? So you're getting the dialogue, they're interested, and not just to the current intermediaries, but yes to the Metcalfs and yes to the McConnells of the world. We should be having those conversations.
Laidlaw Foundation too.
Yeah, they need our perspective. So now what would be a way that we could approach them and say, hey, this is what we could offer, what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate you saying yes to the Laidlaws and the Metcalfs of the world, because I almost want to take a step back from what I said, like suggesting kind of just writing off our ability to support those organizations. In a lot of ways, those organizations are privileged, and from a particular perspective, that they don't have to have the same fear of making mistakes. There's a certain risk that they can take in
Yes.
having community members support the work that they're doing and trying something new and something novel, that these newer organizations may not feel they have the what's the word I'm looking for? The reputational capital, if you will, to actually do, right? The risk tolerance of
They don't feel like they
organizations.
have the safety net either.
Yeah, it's just like, well, if we make a mistake, that's it.
Game
We're
over.
done. Like,
Right.
there's this
And
big
everybody's
fear of
watching.
looking bad. Exactly, right? And it's that fear of looking bad that makes it a bit more difficult for these younger organizations in the funding ecosystem to take a chance on something novel, something new, something that is more community rooted in their approach, right? That being said, and I think your original question is like, what can these organizations do, or just
well, what would you propose to them based on how you've built Calabash? Like, what would be a great entry point?
Yeah, I really think just open conversations. I think like that's the starting point is always conversation, and it's a difficult thing to propose, because even when you look at Calabash, I think a lot of people would argue that we've taken so long in building up what Calabash is. There's a lot of people with whom I've had conversations about Calabash right from the beginning, and they're asking like, what have you done to this point? Excuse me. And a lot of what we've done is have conversations. Like, it's a lot of conversations. And I think that's the challenging part of collaboration, especially when you're talking about collaboration by consensus versus popular vote, in that, like, to build consensus amongst all of the key stakeholders, it takes time, right? And to build out a new model, it takes time. So I think just conversation, and just being willing to have that conversation, because that so often is what's missing, just the ability to get past those gatekeepers and have the conversation with the people who can actually make change.
So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick little break, and this is going to be a different type of break today, because I'm going to promote a great program that is starting.
Cool.
With a great organization. And let me just get it up here. All right. Foodpreneur Labs.
Solid.
All right. Foodpreneur Labs. They now have cohort 1 applications open. They have the funding available, support 35 startup and 15 scale up Black participants to develop and scale a food product, folks. 35 startups, 15 scale up. No cost, folks. So if you're located in the Toronto area of York, Toronto, or Peel region, and have been dreaming about having access to a guided, expert, personalized support developed or to develop or scale up your food products, this is your opportunity. The deadline to apply is October 22nd. Do not miss this, folks. If you are in the food game, there it is. You got applications. This is the whole thing here, folks. So we are getting in the game on this program to support organizations. So if organizations, you have upcoming cohorts, get in contact with us, and we can put it on our platform and get it out to that wider audience. And just like Calabash is doing, we want to help and get the message out there, because a lot of people wouldn't even probably know about this if they didn't watch this today.
And quick question. So do you know, is it for like a person running a restaurant, or a person that has an actual food product they want to sell?
Food product, but there's a lot of restaurants that have food products that they have in their own restaurants. Like for example, we had a sugarcane restaurant on last Friday. They have their own sauce line.
Okay. Gotta get the word to them.
Right. So right now they're only doing their own sauces within their own restaurant. What about if you could see that on shelf on different stores?
Right.
So that's our ad for today. Usually I thought I'd change it up a little bit. So
well, and I'm glad that that was the ad today because Janice with Foodpreneur Lab is part of the ecosystem partners that got funding from the federal government, part of the Black Entrepreneurship Program. And that ties really well into what we're talking about today, because the ecosystem partners are, I won't say they're supposed to be collaborating, but we have to collaborate. Like this, we can't let this type of opportunity pass us by. So now, seeing that their program is open, this is where all of the other ecosystem partners need to be able to promote it, because we did an actual survey of our database, and then we're finding people that have food products in the retail space, are restaurateurs in the food space. Now we can say, hey, you segment chunk of people, boom, cohorts are open. This is where you can sign up to get to that next level, instead of us trying to figure out how to support us, I'm saying as ACBN, trying to figure out how to support a food entrepreneur. So
let's get back to Chris here. Chris, when you're having these conversations with the nonprofit organizations, and I was privy to a lot of them all last year, what are the common challenges you're hearing from them that are blocking them or preventing them from taking that next step?
So I feel like the biggest challenge is the way that organizations are funded. There is so much focus on programming costs with no view to how this program actually comes to be.
Process.
Right? There's so much focus on just ensuring that that there's kind of a return on investment, that as many dollars get to the end user as possible. And within that calculation on return on investments, like administrative costs are diminished, operational costs are diminished, the capital costs are diminished. So organizations never reach a point where they can actually develop the structures that allow them to facilitate programs more effectively, because everything that I just mentioned, the operational, administrative, and the capital, are part of that structure, right? And what happens instead is organizations being caught in this constant cycle of getting funding that flows through the organization, which, you know, from the funder's perspective is great, because they can say like only X number of dollars was spent on, you know, managers giving people jobs, however it's framed.
Admin and
right.
overhead.
Exactly, on overhead, right? Versus dollars that got directly funded to community. But on the other side of that, like those organizations that are run by people are subsidizing that gap, right? With their volunteer time, with their personal resources. And it means that these organizations are never developing.
Right. No sustainability.
There's no sustainability. And I think looking at the intermediary model, and I only have like a limited view into how that funding has actually been allocated.
Right.
But my view on it, whether you're talking about the SBCCI program, or you're talking about FACE, or you're talking about any of these programs, it's likely that the same thing is repeating itself, where a lot of funding has been allocated. Yeah.
Yes.
Where a lot of funding has been allocated to the end user, which in this case is other nonprofit organizations. But for the actual facilitation of that program, probably, you know, not enough funding has been allocated to how this program is going to run. And certainly not enough resources on the back end in terms of building those processes that will allow the program to run as effectively as it could. And again, this is speculation. I'm not in the back end.
I can give you some insight because I have experience in a nonprofit, and I've talked to enough people. I want to ask you an interesting question, and this I developed over the time. Really and truly, if you look at a for-profit and not-for-profit entity, at the end of the day, the only thing that's different is the bottom line. Well, the bottom line is important to both of them. But true. Especially for a not-for-profit, would you say a number of not-for-profits don't think about the bottom line?
I mean, it's tough, right?
Yep.
Because not-for-profit organizations aren't necessarily incentivized to think about the bottom line, right?
But it's a business, really and truly.
Yeah.
The only thing that's really different is that and correct me if I'm wrong here, in a not-for-profit, you're measured by how many people you serve.
Yes. Yep.
But it's still a business model.
Certainly, but And speaking again to that lack of attention being paid to, like even add marketing to that, to the managerial, to the operating, to the overhead, right? With a business, they have the ability to bake those costs into the cost of their product, right? So they're able to have that cost benefit analysis and say, you know what, this is how much it costs to run my business. And this is how much I'm going to sell the product for, such that the costs of running my business are covered, in addition to a small profit at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a not-for-profit organization, the calculus is that they are providing some sort of societal good, right? And in return, we as a society, whether you're talking about the government through grants, non-government foundations through grants and other funding awards, or the general public through their donations, pay for that good. That's the product. The good is the product. However, the major funder, the government and the foundations, don't provide for the marketing and the overhead, meaning that not-for-profit organizations are never fully covering the cost of the product, even though the product is being delivered. So they're constantly running at a loss. Right. So that's the main difference. So it's almost like, how can a not-for-profit organization actually think of itself as a business when the structures that have been set up almost force them to run at a loss?
Right.
Would lead me to say, do we need to blow up the funding model and start it all over again?
I mean,
I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
I mean, there's certainly an argument for that. I don't know that this current focus on, because when you take a look at what funding is being made available by funders, there's a huge focus on capacity building, which in theory is to, build the capacity of the organization. But ultimately, that can't be used for overhead costs. That's being used to pay for consultants like myself to come in and tell an organization, this is what you need to do. This is what's going to help move you forward. Okay. Where are the costs to actually implement those recommendations, right?
Exactly.
There's the programming costs, which, have the organization serve as a non-governmental entity doing those things that the government doesn't want to be directly involved in, but they recognize as a societal good and help to keep the wheels of society rolling. That can't be used towards overhead. And then there's the unrestricted funding that's provided through social enterprises or through donations,
right?
Which, unless you're a very large organization like a hospital or university, you can't rely on fundraising.
No, and probably a number of these organizations don't even have a tax number.
Yeah.
So there's another thing too, right?
So it's just all of these challenges structurally that have it such that an organization has a really big challenge in running like a business, as is suggested they should do. Right.
So Christopher is asking, is this the government's fault or the not-for-profit's fault?
I mean, I think from my perspective, if you're talking about the structure of it, like structurally speaking, the not-for-profit organizations have, little to do with how the structure is set up. Right. You could argue they could lobby and they could take action such that there's change made towards that structure, and many organizations are doing that, right? Like there is currently a motion being put forward to change the disbursement quota for granting foundations, such that they're not only giving 3.5%, they're giving 5% of their I think it's their asset towards granting every year, right? So that's kind of action that's being taken, but putting more money into the pool doesn't necessarily change the structure of how the funding is allocated, right? And on the not-for-profit side, certainly there's an argument that could be made towards not-for-profits actually putting together, a business plan and an organizational plan, which most not-for-profit organizations don't have, right? If you're going to be running at a loss, at least understand that you're going to be running at a loss and see what that gap looks like, so you can have some chance of addressing it. Otherwise, you're just in a cycle of
repetition,
looking for money wherever you can find it to try and fill the gap, or cutting the program because you don't have the money to do the program, right?
Oh, there you go. Ryan, go ahead. I'll go for a while on this. So Ryan, go ahead.
Listen, I'm enjoying the conversation, and as I'm listening, I'm starting to think of now,
Actually, there's a good question here too. Chris,
Oh, yeah,
through collaboration and partnerships, solving complexity, can we look away from funding?
So that's where my mind is going, because when we're dealing with a type of funding that forces you to operate in a certain way that isn't conducive to a sustainable organization, are we looking for money in the wrong place? Because now nonprofits that are dependent on certain type of funding, they can't think about how to build in or design in, like, because you said, like, with a business, the product, you can design in the cost of running your business. You can't design in the cost of a person that you're supporting based on the grants that you're getting to run the full organization, especially when the grant says you can't use it for overhead.
Exactly. It's like, you can't use the money towards this.
Yeah, it only can be used for that. So, and Nicola Harris, that's ACBN's co-executive director, she talks a lot about only 30% being part of your fund development plan. So now shifting away from grants, that's 70%. What are you seeing that nonprofits aren't embracing that they could be, that would allow them to operate more like a business and be sustainable?
Yeah, and it's really funny that you asked that question, because the work that I do is public relations, right? And corporate communications. That's kind of my own background. Right. And there's such hesitation from not-for-profit organizations in marketing themselves and doing public relations. And the reason why I bring that up is because those are the things that are really important when you want to start pursuing funding that is outside of the government, when you want to start pursuing corporate funding, for instance.
Yep.
Right? And looking for sponsorship. Because
what sponsorships? People going, what?
Yeah,
what?
I mean, it's one viable channel for organizations to pursue, right?
No, I will piggyback on that, and Ryan knows how passionate I am about sponsorships.
Yes.
Yeah.
Black Canadians, there is one heck of a lot of money out there outside of the government,
right,
that you could be taking advantage of. If you hire people like individuals like Chris, who can present your message to organizations, there is a lot of money out there. Because one of the challenges with the whole funding with the government, and I was a person many years ago, I didn't believe in it, but somebody said, hey, that's your tax money. Okay, if I go after it, 800,000 other people are going after that small little bucket. The number of people that are going after government, Black individuals going after government funding versus non-government funding, but people, it's like this for government funding, but Blacks who are going after, it's like this, less competition, folks.
Yeah.
Less competition.
Absolutely. But the pushback that I get when I talk to nonprofits about that very thing is they feel like they're pimping out their clientele, their users, because sponsorship is more around a corporate saying, hey, can you introduce us to people that we can market?
No, not necessarily. With sponsorships,
I'm saying that's how they see it.
But again, that's their thought process.
Exactly. Yeah, they're seeing it as,
right,
I'm now taking this at-risk youth and putting them in front of this company. Let's say it's McDonald's, so that McDonald's can sell them a Happy Meal.
But see,
I'm talking about what's in here. This is what I'm hearing, right?
There's different types of sponsorship. That could be sponsorships in regards to more sales, but a lot of companies want sponsorship that aligns with their brand message.
Exactly.
And their
people don't understand that.
Yeah.
Right? People do not understand that. A lot of corporations, especially in the D&I space right now, they're looking to align themselves with organizations and brands that align with their messages. So, look, McDonald's, you think all the relationships they have is based on how much money I'm going to make? They're going to make money forever.
But that's the perception of McDonald's. The perception.
Well, just building off of that, I think there's also an ethical dilemma that comes with depending on the company that you're approaching, because these organizations that now have these D&I mandates in the past, like, were engaged in activities that were very much not community centric, and organizations are like, well, do I want to be aligned with this person that's basically just trying to change their image,
put out a symbol?
Right? So,
that's the thing. Like, people think, oh, they're only going to be after money. they're gonna make lots of money with or without you.
Yeah.
Right? If there's money that comes out to bonus, they want many organizations would just want a good corporate message out there. They want to get their message out to a wider group of people. Right? So organizations out there, go to Chris, and I'm sure he has knowledge, and I have knowledge of organizations that are out there that are interested in sponsoring organizations. A lot of times, as long as they have their name on your awards presentation, they're good, and you run yourself efficiently, they're good, because at the end of the day, folks, it's a tax write-off for them.
Right.
Right. Right. It's a tax write-off for them. So don't be afraid. Go to someone like Chris and say, hey, are there any opportunities to get sponsorships? I know of a gentleman too. Now that's, again, she deals with it at the high end, but again, there's a lot of money. Don't always look at the government, because if a government changes,
right. And we saw people sweating.
Back on September 20th, there were a number of Black organizations that were sweating.
Yes.
Right? Because if there would have been a change to a conservative government, a lot of people say, oh, they got their money already. Well, they can always delay getting the money if they're in power. A company doesn't like what you're doing.
Exactly.
So, right.
I'm curious now. So we've talked about grants. We've talked about sponsorship. Around the social enterprise piece, what have you been hearing from nonprofits when you're bringing up the conversation of them creating their own revenue and money to use for their organization?
Yeah, I mean, what I've been hearing is that it's a challenge, right? And it's something I understand, because there are only certain kinds of organizations for which a social enterprise makes sense, right? And number one, if an organization is just starting out and that's the foundation of how their organization is starting, then it makes sense, because then you're right from the beginning having this blended model of the social good, but some profit being generated such that you're sustaining the operations through that profit, right? And then there are the larger organizations of a certain size where they've gained some level of sustainability through their operations and are then able to take a chance on starting a social enterprise, which may or may not generate a lot of revenue. In most cases, frankly, a social enterprise is best case scenario just going to sustain itself, because essentially what you're doing is baking a business within your organization. That business has costs, and you're then relying on the profit that's kind of shaved off of those costs at the end of the day to contribute back to the organization, which in most cases is not going to be a lot. So it really is kind of an analyzing, how does this social enterprise bake into what we're already doing, such that we're not starting something brand new, which has all of these costs associated with it, such that the return on investment is worth the time being spent on this project. And again, just going back to it, such that it aligns with what we're doing, right? One of the best examples for me of a successful social enterprise is an organization that I'm working with, Access Alliance Multicultural Health and Community Services, where they're a community health center that works with immigrants, refugees, and newcomers. That's their primary population. Now, within the community health center, they have the language services department, which does interpretation and translation. That directly ties back to the work that they're doing as an organization, because they need interpreters and translators to work with their clients. The smart thing about that is those interpreters and translators can work with any organization. So not only are they serving the clients of Access Alliance, they're serving community health centers across Ontario through in-person and remote interpretation. And as a result, they're able to generate quite a bit of revenue. I think in their last annual report, the language services department, I want to say, generated over $1 million in revenue to the organization because of like how much how much work that they're doing, not just within the organization, but outside the organization.
Exactly.
It directly aligns. And I think that's the thing that you have to recognize, that one, it has to directly align with the work that you're doing to make sense.
Alignment.
The alignment is, and two, it has to be such that it serves not just your client, but also serves an external audience to make the most sense. Right.
So Chris is saying here, the other Chris, with a couple of projects I had the opportunity to be part of and also spearhead, we have surpassed expectations with partnerships away from government funding. Well, there's a person who's
awesome.
He's jumped the boat. He's jumped the boat. He says, I don't need the government anymore. We found other ways. And the other Chris, I like what you're saying here, Christopher Trotman.
Thanks, Christopher. And I mean, personally, I would never dismiss government funding.
No, I don't either.
I see this large pool, but I have enough confidence to know, I'm like, okay, there's this large pool of people going after this small pool of funding. But I know that my application that I write for that funding is going to be in the top 10%. I had that confidence, and the success rate that I have with writing grants kind of affirms that confidence that most folks who are writing grants aren't portraying their organization effectively or the program that they're trying to run in the best light, such that even though there's this hundreds or thousands of people going after a grant, if you have the skill to put forward an effective grant application, you're still going to shine out amongst the crowd. So
absolutely. And I just want to encourage organizations, if you don't know how to, you've never been successful writing a grant, find money to get someone who has proven success in doing it. Proven success.
That point actually made me forget my point.
Well, and the other Chris is saying, don't get me wrong, though government funding is not a bad thing. It's just a bad habit if your programs and services is solely based on this. Absolutely.
Thank you. 100%. That was exactly what I was thinking. Because a lot of times when organizations are writing, especially the smaller ones, are writing grants, they're very needy. They write the grant and the program will only go forward if they get this money.
Exactly.
That's where other organizations that are not as dependent on the government or dependent on grants, when they're writing an application, it's like, listen, we are doing this. If you give us extra or additional money, we will be able to amplify it. That difference in language, because government, I've never seen funders that want to be the sole funder of a project. It's like, hey, this doesn't come through, the project is over. Because I've seen too many organizations close, like Dr. Vi, like you said, government changes or the funder changes their mind, they change their focus. So now really working with organizations to not be so needy when they're writing these grants depends on where they're getting their money from. So and you mentioned earlier, Christopher, about the Social Finance Fund creating the investment readiness program to get organizations that are doing social enterprises ready to be investable. So now, because the investment readiness program, I keep hearing it's supposed to renew sometime.
There's going to be another round for sure.
Yeah.
In the fall.
What would you advise to organizations that fit the criteria? Why should they approach the investment readiness program? And what have you seen as success stories or a couple examples of why it's so important?
So I think it's tough, right? Because quite frankly, very few organizations are going to be in a place where the investment readiness program even makes sense. And that includes some of the organizations that have been funded, right? Because the premise of the investment readiness program is that you are in a place where you see an opportunity in the near future to accept investment from a private source. And you're just taking the steps that are necessary to position yourself in the best way possible for that private source. And that could look like developing your business plan. That could look like doing pre-development work for developing some sort of social purpose real estate. So your architectural renderings or doing a study of the land so you can get your land valuations, things like that, right? There are steps that you need to take to get yourself to a point where when the investor comes knocking at your door, you have everything that you need to present to them. But like I said, there are very few organizations that are in that place. And going back to this theme of solving complexity through collaboration, for most organizations that are in that kind of small to medium-sized category, what's going to make the most sense is collaborating with other like-minded organizations to see what opportunities exist to perhaps invest in a community hub model, Perhaps it's looking at what kind of business can you do together. Perhaps it's like what opportunities exist that for a small organization don't make so much sense, but for organizations collaborating, you could then create that opportunity.
I just want to build on that. The greatest wealth that an entrepreneur of business has, in my opinion, is your relationships.
Agreed.
Right? I'd rather have 1 million strong relationships than $1 million. Actually, I'd rather have 10,000 strong relationships than $1 million, because those 10,000 relationships can surpass $1 million for me in worth. So many of us have to get over the trauma of these relationship thing, get over the trauma to develop those good relationships. Almost every time I go to the plate now where it's sponsorship, I have someone with me. Right? Ryan and I, another individual, we have collaborated together on a proposal, because each one of us brings expertise. At the end of the day, we're all going to win, and the organization is going to win, most importantly, and the audience is going to win. I don't have the capacity to do it by myself. So a lot of the organizations out there, stop playing games. You know, if you don't know how to do something, ask for help.
Yeah.
Find those people that you can align with and unify with, and present yourselves. Invest in someone like Christopher. Invest. Yes, you're gonna have to invest some money, because he knows what he's doing. But you know what? An investment and a relationship is long term. It's an investment. Go into it thinking of the long term, not the short term.
Yeah. And just to quickly build off of what you just said, and just to put a point on it, I think these private entities, whether you're talking about the government or an investor, are all looking at the concept of how do we diversify our risk? How do we reduce that risk such that there's a higher chance of this succeeding? And when they see multiple organizations coming together, that is a risk mitigation strategy, because one organization on its own is potentially unstable. But when multiple organizations come together, then there's added stability, because you're not just working from one pool of funding now or one group of people. You're bringing together experts who have like different specialties to come together for a collaborative approach. And I think that's very attractive for both funders and for the potential investing audience.
I'm going to get down to real low hanging fruit here, especially these days. If you are Black organizations and you can collaborate together, it gives a strong look to a lot of times those funders who don't look like us, who a lot of times don't think we can work together, and say, wow, these organizations got together. That is impressive.
Yeah, 100%. That it changes the whole stereotype. Like, it changes the whole mindset of what anything that we do. So the bookend that, moving forward, we will be solving complexity through collaboration. Thank you so much, Christopher.
Well done. Nice close. What a media superstar.
I'm the master here.
The smooth groove close. I love it. Christopher, again, thank you for investing your time with our audience today. Is the best place people can get a hold of you through Trotman Communications?
Yeah, trotmancommunications.ca. I'm actually investing in improving my website as well. So look forward to some changes over the next few weeks. But yeah, that's the best way to reach me.
Chris, always a pleasure. Keep up the outstanding heart work, not hard work. Heart work.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good one. Me. No, not anytime. The mic is always open.
Yes.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye. There you go, Trotman Communications. That was a spirited conversation, you think?
Needed, yes.
Well, on a continuous basis.
Exactly.
A continuous basis. That was good stuff. And I'd like to thank everyone who took part of it live. Christopher Lawrence, great dialogue. Sunnyborg Farm was in the house. Thank you so much. Yeah, good stuff. So what's up for the rest of the week?
This week, so Nathan's here. We're gonna
we gotta get him on boarded. Yes.
So ACBN will be able to, actually have a stronger marketing presence. This is something that kind of slips through the cracks. The job fair ended on Friday. So now the next big event for us is the Legacy Symposium, which I'm going to be asking Dr. Vibe to come back and host a little bit. So we'll see if he's available.
Get me the dates now so I can be more there. I was disappointed because I couldn't be more fully engaged, but get me the dates early and I would be absolutely jacked 100%. To be part of this year's event. I look forward to it because that the first one developed so many rich relationships. That actually amplified our relationship.
Absolutely. Yes,
that's where we got to know each other better. So again, people, if anything I want you to take away from today, relationships, and especially within the family, every family has so much wealth. And I'm not just talking money. You have relationship capital, you have knowledge capital. Get those relationships down and collaborate. Really and truly get those relations down and collaborate with each other and develop the wealth. That is where our wealth starts, within the family and also with others that are like-minded.
Love that.
Anything else for today, Dr. Knight?
No, I'm going to be enjoying the week. I feel like a lot will get done. And just looking forward to
Big week.
Yes.
So who do we have on Friday?
So our esteemed guest, Chrisbeth Cowie, will be back to let us know what she's been working on with Empowered for X. And again, helping businesses infuse technology into their companies. So I wanted to kind of check in. Their business accelerator should be starting again soon. And also she works on a youth entrepreneurship cohort. So
So again, and I'm just going to put up real right quick again for those who are in the area of food and you want to get your food product to shelf. We're going to put it up just quickly again.
But wait, you haven't asked Janet to come on yet?
Janet is going to come on. She's as busy as you are. This is available right now.
Janice, shout out.
Yes, Foodpreneur Labs cohort number 1 is open. They have funding available to support 35 startups and 15 scale-up Black participants in developing or scaling up food products. Go to foodpreneur.com. You'll find the application there. Applications are open till October 22nd. The program starts November 1st. So we are providing the information. So if you organizations have other opportunities to scale up and help our people, make us aware, contact us. All right. You can watch replays of this on the Dr. Vibe Facebook channel, Dr. Vibe YouTube channel, ACBN Facebook page, and the Ryan Knight YouTube page. Please. Thank you, everyone, for making this an epic conversation and make it happen. As always, like to end off with like this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourself grace. And I'll throw this one. Don't change, they'll adapt. Take care, everybody. Thanks again for watching live or on the replay. Peace.